Okay, so let me tell you about my little pizza hack that I have right now. I'm
Uh-oh,
gonna
okay.
tell you about my little secret little pizza hack. So, not sponsored, by the way. And I think that if I were I sponsored by the business that I received this special from, I think that they would de-sponsor me after realizing what I've been doing. But there's a
Uh-oh.
special like combo right now. There's a combo special where it's like you get a combo with like a bunch of crap on it that I don't like, and it's $20, which is like cheaper than a one topping large pizza from this place. Okay,
Okay.
so what you do is you pick the special and you just remove everything you don't want, and for some reason you still get the special. And so I show up, I go to the counter, I'm like, hey, I ordered a pizza, and they're like, yeah, let's look at it, and I'm like, okay. And they like look at it, it's like, yes, this is the special on the combo. It looks like you removed literally everything except pepperoni. And I'm like, yup, I did. I sure did. It's cheaper than buying a large pepperoni. You can't blame me. And they kind of give me a look, and I'm like, yeah, I guess we can't blame you. And they hand me my pepperoni pizza. I go home and I eat that shit, and everybody's happy.
Sick pizza hack, bro.
That's life hacks, bro. Real life hacks are real. You just gotta really look for them. I'm telling
That
you.
is very, very funny that it's cheaper to just tell them, hey, don't put all this stuff on your special.
It's cheaper to be like, I would like your combination pizza, please, without anything on it except the pepperoni.
Oh my
And they're like,
gosh.
and the website's like, okay. And then I show up and they're like, that's weird. And I'm like, not
It's
really. It's
it's one
financially
of those
sound.
it's one of those hacks where I also feel like if you tried to order it over the phone or in person, they'd be like, nah, that's not how this works.
Yeah, I feel like this is definitely one of those things. That's why it's a hack, right? Because you're
Yeah,
using
yeah.
the digital platform as like an exploit. And boy, have I done this like 4 times.
That's hilarious.
And every time it's like a different person at the counter, and I have to explain. But they're like,
Well,
that's true.
similar to your pizza that should have had many things on it, we have many things to talk about today. So, hello, everybody. Video games, hello, even. And
Video
welcome
games,
to the
hello.
Audio Games Podcast. I'm Neil.
And I'm Matt, and happy Father's Day, by the way.
Yes, we are recording this on Father's Day. Shout out to all the fathers out there.
All them dads and all them video game dads. Do you have a favorite video game dad, Neil?
I mean, the easy answer is Kratos, but I don't have strong enough feelings to say Kratos.
Oh,
It's just that's
well,
like the dad I think of when I think of a video game dad right now.
really? That's the iconic video game dad is Kratos?
Apparently. Which is
Oh.
like, really, what does that say about the state of video games?
I mean, what does it say about the state of games you played?
Oh, fair, fair. Why? Who's your video game dad?
My video game dad is the protagonist from there's the kind of a little known Lucas Arts first person shooter called Outlaws. It was a Western themed shooter. And
Okay.
it's very much about a dad who's like looking to save his daughter. And I'm like, that's what a video game dad should be.
All right. Well, do we want to jump into video games, or should we just talk about all of the many, many announcements from the combination state of play, Summer Game Fest, whatever the fuck
Um
Microsoft calls their thing?
I have far too many things to talk about that I personally played to just go straight into the presentation stuff.
Okay.
And it might serve well to bleed into it anyway. So I'll keep the things that aren't actually that valuable to talk about brief, and the things that, I feel might come up again towards the end of the year, hint, hint. Uh,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I'll go a little longer on those. But first and foremost, I need to talk about Tintin and the Cigars of the Pharaoh. A
Okay.
wonderful, a wonderful Tintin franchise entry in the interactive digital format of video games. This was part of the Sony, what's it called? Not the state of play, but like there was some
Like
sort
the
of
free
Sony
stuff they give you or
celebration.
whatever?
No, it was not free, unfortunately.
Oh, okay.
Um, but it was definitely on sale as part of like a little game fest thing that they were doing. I think that they were kind of getting ahead of the summer game fest, which we were definitely going to talk a lot more about later.
Hmm.
But they had a bunch of things on sale, and we were scrolling through it, me and Jackie, and we for some reason she kept coming back to this Tintin game, and I'm like, I've never even seen the movie Tintin, and she's like, well, we got to play it, and I'm
It's
like,
a
do
pretty good
we?
movie.
You've seen it?
Yeah, a long time ago, but I remember it being a pretty good one.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe I'll have to expand my knowledge on Tintin. Um, but yeah, it's a weird, just a very weird um, puzzle traversal game. Let's say there was a lot more gameplay than I expected. But then again, I don't really know a lot about Tintin, so I can't really tell you. But this began a very long conversation between me and Jackie about the amount of first-person video games that there are. And one of the reasons that she got Tintin is because we also got the Midnight Walk, which is
Hmm.
something that I played some of. And when you look at the trailers and the previews for the Midnight Walk, it doesn't like immediately read first person, but it is.
Sure.
Like I thought that it was like, oh, you play as this little dumpy torch kid thing, and like you're kind of wandering through these like really weird, creepy, but also kind of weirdly cute environments. But no, it's an escort game where you are escorting that creature, and that was not apparent in any of the trailers. And so we booted the game up, and we're like, oh, there's like this interesting first person section at the beginning. I wonder what will happen when it shifts perspective, and then it just never does. And that sucks for Jackie because she gets motion sick with first person.
Okay.
So we couldn't play that. And so like later on, like a week later, we're like, okay, let's go look through these sales. Tintin and the Cigars of the Pharaoh shows up. And we're like, okay, well, I mean, I'm not personally interested in this, but it certainly doesn't look like it's first person, except there are first person sections.
Oh
So then
no.
the first person sections you're playing as the dog, Snowy, and it's showing your little muzzle in front of you, and it's very cute in its own way, but also it's gonna make you motion sick if you don't like first person. So, we've been kind of trading off on that, and she'll be playing it, and then Snowy will be the playable character. I'm like, I guess I'm playing this section. So that's how we've been doing that. It's about so Tintin is on a boat to, I believe, China, but then he gets waylaid because he helps a professor find a piece of parchment that was important to the Egyptologist study that he is doing, and so he kind of like gets caught up in this, and he gets accused of drug smuggling. So Tintin gets accused of smuggling drugs to China, and so he has to like leave the boat before he gets like captured by the authorities. That was the point where I was like, I'm not sure I really understand what Tintin's about, because like generally it's like oh, it's like kind of this whimsical like family friendly thing, but then he's getting accused of smuggling drugs, and I'm like, oh, that's different than what I expected. But it's for the most part been exactly what you'd expect. Just like looking at the cover, um, the mystery is not that compelling, if I'm being honest. But I also don't really understand what the ending's going to be like. I can't predict that where I'm at in the game.
Okay.
So I mean, it's the mystery is there. I'm just not that interested in it. And those are the two games that I didn't really spend a ton of time with, but I did want to include on the podcast. Um, there are many games that I do want to talk more about, though. But before I do, I want to invite you to this conversation rather than just be a very long monologue.
Sure, sure. I've been also playing some games, though
Okay.
my games have been a little. I've been playing a lot of games that I'm just kind of playing, not so much games that have an ending, we'll say. Um and that's like I've continued playing Star of Providence, just kind of I'll do a few runs every few days. That game's still cool. Bullet hell is hard.
Do you
I've
feel like you've gotten better at it?
I have, but not substantially. I think I've had 2 fully successful runs, and I tend to get to the 4th or 5th out of 5 areas more frequently.
Um,
But sometimes a run just goes bad. Um, I'm still playing Zenless Zone Zero. They did their big, hey, it's been a year, we're doing a giant 2.0 update with a bunch more stuff. That's been cool.
Let me just interject. Let me just interject here. I have not played Genshin Impact for like a month and a half now.
Has the game gone stale on you?
I I just have. I feel like Not One was such a disappointment in terms of like developing the story. And they did this whole presentation about what they're planning on doing after Not Long, and like they're trying to address a lot of the criticisms. And I'm just like, I haven't been playing for a while. Maybe this is my out. And so I've just been avoiding playing Genshin. And boy, do they send you a lot of emails if you haven't been logging in. In fact, I also noticed they've been sending me more emails for their other games. They're like, okay, well, maybe you fell off of this one. Check out our other games. And I'm like, I'll hear about it from Neil.
Yeah. Zenless Zone Zero continues to be relatively fun. There's annoyances I have with it, which is why I'm glad I'm not like a big spender in it or anything, which would make me way more frustrated and make me have like some conflicts with myself that I don't have to deal with because I don't really spend the money.
Okay.
Mostly around, they have a couple times over the last year changed voice actors on some stuff, and unsurprisingly, more recently in the last couple months, some of that was around the SAG-AFTRA strikes.
Yeah. Genshin's really caught up in this mess.
Oh, I bet. And that's like disappointing because I support the union. But there's also been some news on that. I guess I'll just jump the gun because I didn't look super carefully into it. Like things are still sort of in that zone of we think something is going to be agreed upon here. So
the zone, you
SAG-AFTRA
could say, is kind of zenless.
Sorry?
The zone's kind of zenless right now.
Yeah, that's what's going on. A deal has been getting struck from what I understand. I don't think it is fully signed off on and the strike is over, but it looks like it's about to be, and SAG-AFTRA and the video games industry will start working together again very soon. So that's good.
Yeah, maybe Grand Theft Auto 6 will actually not get delayed anymore.
Let's not hold our breath. I've also continued playing Blasphemous 2 on stream. That game is a very fun search adventure game, Metroidvania, as some people like to say.
Listen, okay, no. Before you continue, I could define Tintin and the Cigars of the Pharaoh as a search and adventure game. Okay.
Uh-huh.
It meets both the criteria of you search for things and it's an adventure. Do not put Tintin and the Cigars of the Pharaoh next to Blasphemous 2, please.
Was it level-based?
Yes, there's different levels.
Well, then that feels like a different thing, because it's level-based instead of,
that's not
an area.
That's not in the description of your... It's not part of the describer. You can't use that.
It's fine. Point is, I like that game a lot. I think I'm like 75-ish maybe % through it at this point. I think I have like 2 more major zones and some cleanup if I want to kind of get everything. Game is really cool. I talked a lot about the like early parts of the game being really interesting in their structure. It gets a little more linear than I expected towards the back half, but it has continued to be a really fun game.
Is it better than the first Blasphemous?
I think in most ways, yes.
Okay.
So, good on them.
That is good. I that's what you want to have in a sequel. You want them to expand and fix the things that you didn't like about the previous game.
But I have been spending a lot of time with one other game that I know you've played some of too. So if you have anything else to talk about first, let's hear about that.
Okay, well then.
Oh, yeah, your mic just went weird.
Whoa.
Oh, there
Okay,
you
there we
are.
go. So, okay. White Knuckle. It is a procedurally generated climbing game that has some of the best controls of its kind that I have ever experienced. And I have watched other people play this game and have the same reaction, like, wow, this actually feels really good. And it's very intense. It's a pseudo horror game. I think that the horror elements kind of place they kind of play second hat to the core mechanics, to the point where, like, yes, there are some parts that are scary, but once you realize what's going on, you're more concerned about, like, how you're managing your resources, and by resources I mean like stamina as well.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's a go up game, and man, when you're doing well, it just feels good, and then you just suddenly die, and you're like, well, time to start again. Um, I played the demo. I don't remember if it was during some sort of specific demo festival that Steam's always doing, but I played the demo and I put like 4 or 5 hours into the demo alone,
Wow.
and I was like, I should probably just buy this game, and so I bought it, and every once in a while I just boot it up, even though I'm being swamped with all these other games. I'm like, I still want to play a little bit of White Knuckle. But the thing that has been keeping me from White Knuckle is Deltarune chapters 3 and 4. You may remember Deltarune as the game that is a sequel, not sequel, to the illustrious Undertale that hit the ground running in the video game scene. And it's been like 5 years since the previous chapter came out, and the game is still quite good. The writing is still on point. The lore is still compelling. It's certainly the mysteries of Deltarune are certainly more compelling than the mysteries of Tintin and the Cigars of the Pharaoh. Not to throw Tintin under the
Just
bus
you
there.
really are just throwing it under the bus there.
Well, I'm sorry, but I feel like if I could take the files of the recordings I did on the Sony PlayStation 5 and share them with the audience, you would see how janky that game can be. But without having that, just know that Deltarune I would rate higher than Tintin. Um, but the thing is, like, the reason that I think that you're probably kind of not interested in Deltarune right now is because it's not done. You know, you end chapter 4 on a bit of its own cliffhanger, and that's fine. But, it's like chapter 5 coming soon. And here's the thing, it is coming sooner than the previous chapters. At the end of chapter 4, at the end of the credits, it says 2026, so next year. Um, that's 5 times faster than the previous update. But
Sure.
this game also has like 8 or 9 chapters, so I mean, we're gonna be looking into like 2030 for Deltarune to be done, and that can be a bit of a deterrence. But as someone who likes to be a part of the discourse, I've been enjoying it. I've been enjoying in like the theories and the memes and the posts, and just, it's nice to see something lively, and so that's been great. I don't really want to talk specifically about like what happens in it, because I feel like eventually you will get around to it, maybe if you still play video games 5 years from now. Um, and
I am
then
curious a little bit about one thing. Not this is not so spoiler related, so you might be able to answer it.
sure.
Um, have you seen a development, let's say, of like the mechanics and such between these chapters? Because with so much time going between them, I have to imagine, like, between chapter 1 and chapter 4, there's been some major mechanical changes.
Yeah, well, there's to not spoil too much. There's always been like, and even across Undertale, like the battle system is like kind of straightforward. It's just like you take your turn, you usually act, and then the enemy takes their turn, and it's like this little bullet hell sequence where you dodge bullets. But there's different kind of things that happen that add gimmicks to that system, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, you can't move, but you can block, or oh, certain things you kind of have to stand still or move while they're passing through you. There's lots of gimmicks like that across the chapters in Deltarune, and it does feel fresh. And there's some things that you have to pay closer attention to in certain circumstances. And there's different enemy types now that have different things you have to do. And I'm not, again, I don't want to spoil too much, but yeah, I think that the gameplay still feels good. The writing is still great. The meta narrative is very compelling, and there's these two branching paths, just like in Undertale, and having it go across chapters is very compelling to see, like, oh, well, how is this going to change in the next chapter if you did this, or how will it change if I did that? And one of the things that I should note, at least on terms of the technical side, Deltarune was developed in GameMaker, and GameMaker literally had to implement a new way of like switching between live applications for this game. Like Toby Fox was like, "Hey, I'm planning on like doing this episodically. Is there a way that we can like do this so you can maintain your save file across different like instances of applications?" And so GameMaker was like, "All right, well, we'll figure something out," and then they implemented it. It's like that's the kind of pull you have when you have a game as popular as Deltarune / Undertale. Like you're like, "Hey, engine, do this," and they're like, "We'll try," and then
That's
they do.
pretty wild.
Yeah, and it is important because it's how the game functions. And then I also got a Switch too. Surprise reveal! I bought a Switch 2. I walked into a GameStop, and I was like, "Hey, you guys take walk-ins on Switch 2s?" And they're like, "Actually, we have like 30 left." And I'm like, "Oh, I wasn't expecting that. Well, damn, now I have to buy it, I guess." So I did, and I bought the bundle with the Mario Kart, and so I've been playing the Mario Kart World. It's the open world Mario Kart. I've mostly been playing
a little bit of let's say, how do I put this? Disparaging things about what open world means for Mario Kart.
Well, I mean, do tell. Like, what's the discourse that I've
a lot
not
of
been a
what
part
I've
of?
been hearing is they really oversold what the open world part of that game actually is.
I see. Okay, they did and they didn't. All right. So the part, it's open world in the sense that every track is connected, right?
Okay.
And then when you're playing Grand Prix, you do the first race, and then the next it starts up and you're traveling to the next course, and then you do one lap of that course and that's the finish. And then you travel to the next course, and then you do one lap of that course and that's the finish. And then you do the last course, and then you do 3 laps of that course, and that's the finish for the final course in the Grand Prix, the GP.
Okay.
So the meat of the open world is functional to the main gameplay loop. So I think that the disparaging part that people are not satisfied with is probably like the just driving around in the open world without having the racing happening. And I mean, I understand that can be disappointing, but it's Mario Kart. Like you weren't really signing up for an open world game. And I know that they market it as an open world game, and it is an open world game. Is there a lot of content in the open world? Personally, I find that there's more than I expected, but I also kind of understood like what they were getting at when they called it open world. It's open world in the sense that you can drive wherever you want, not that there's going to necessarily be something meaningful there.
Okay.
But here's the part that I really like about the open world is that when you're in the open world, when you fall, Locky 2 just doesn't fish you out. And so you can go to places that you're not supposed to on the courses themselves and kind of test them. And boy, are there some insane shortcuts that you can take. And the open world is there as like a training ground to be like, can I get up here? Can I go over there? And the other thing that like Mario Kart World introduces besides the quote unquote open world is 2 new like kinds of tricks, and that's the rail tricks and the wall tricks. And you can jump, you can hit the shoulder button to do your jump, but you also hold your shoulder button a la Tony Hawk to do a higher jump. And if you do a higher jump and you hit the wall, then you wall ride. And if you land on a rail, you rail ride. And combinations of these are basically chained together to pull off some really ridiculous things. Um, and I guess the last thing that like really changes for Mario Kart World is that it's 24 people on the track, man. Like a lot of people are like, "Wow, these are really wide tracks. There's not a lot going on here." Yeah, it's because you're like literally in a cloud of people constantly. Like I've been playing the Knockout Tour a lot,
Sure.
which is where you just go from track to track, and it's like F-Zero 99, where if you're not in like the top 20 or then the top 16, top 12, top 8, top 4 at certain points in the race, then you just get eliminated. And then so the people who are in the top 4 basically do this really, really long race of endurance.
So that actually sounds really similar to how the like F-Zero 99 or whatever worked. I wonder if that
Yeah,
was kind of like a test bed, so to speak, for this mode.
well, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised, and even if it wasn't like a test bed, I'm sure that it inspired the idea.
Mm.
It's just the way that it's integrated into like the open world aspect is that like you can have these insanely long races, right?
Yeah.
And when you're running a race that long, it's like, you know, you have 24 people, like how do you meaningfully like cull the herd? And the way you do it is like there's these stops where if you don't make it in time, then you're eliminated. And it's almost not frustrating because like there's so much randomness to playing Mario Kart online, because like you could be in first and you get hit by a lightning bolt and then you're in 11th, and that can happen literally right before you cross that threshold. And you know, you get eliminated. It's like, well, that's Mario Kart, and then you immediately move on to the next one. Like you don't have to sit there and watch the rest of the rally. You know, you can move on to doing another one. So I've been playing a lot of that.
So here's another quick question. Mario Kart has always been a game that has, let's say, comeback mechanics in it.
Rubber banding,
With
yes.
with 24 people,
Yeah.
is it just like constant lightning and fucking blue shells? Like,
I think that there's some sort of algorithm in the code that prevents it from constantly being that way. I think that the most blue shells I've been hit with in a single race was like 3. But
okay,
when you're
that
when
still
you're
seems like a
doing
lot, but all right.
when you're doing Knockout Tour, like you're basically doing 4 races at
Oh,
once.
sure.
So it's kind of, you know, it kind of evens out. But I will say, they tried to do some things to mitigate sandbagging. Sandbagging being the technique of like literally staying behind to get good items, and then like as you approach like a finish line, you just kind of destroy everyone and overtake first place.
Mm-hmm.
They've done some things to try and mitigate that, but they kind of didn't work. So that's still a very widespread and avid technique used by many people, and I have been subjected to it many, many times.
Okay. Have you been playing anything else on the Switch too, or is it just? I mean, there's not a lot of games that I guess launched
What
with it.
what is there to play on the Switch 2 right now? Okay, so let me say, just give me a little aside for the Switch 2 in general. The hardware feels good. I think that it's quality hardware. I've also watched teardowns for the product. I've also watched like, you know, screen scratching and like destruction of the unit just to like test its endurance. And it's actually a very, very sturdy piece of hardware. Um, it also feels sturdy. The Joy-Cons are certainly better than the old ones. You know, but at its core, it's the Switch 2. You know, it's the same format. It's the same size. I've used the mouse mode in the system menu to test it out. And yeah, I will say that as far as the mouse mode goes, it's actually surprisingly good. I can do it on my pants, I can do it on my couch, and it doesn't seem to like lose any sort of fidelity in terms of like how well it responds. So, you know, if I do decide I'm going to play that wheelchair game, then I should be able to do it from my couch. I'm not worried about that at this point. But right now the catalog is very, very thin, and two of the games that like are supposedly taking advantage of the hardware are old games that just need an upgrade, and I'm not interested in playing those again. Um, I have transferred games from my Nintendo account to my Switch 2, and that was actually pretty seamless. I don't have my old Switch. I gave it away.
Oh,
So when you boot your Switch 2, it's like, hey, hold your Switch 1 close to your Switch 2, and we can just move everything over. And I'm like, I don't actually have my Switch 1. I was like, oh, okay, well, here, sign into your Nintendo account, and we'll load your games in. You won't have any of your saves or anything, but you can have the game still. And so I was like, all right. And then I loaded them in, and it was basically that. I have Mario Odyssey on there. I have Animal Crossing. I've played a little bit of the Fire Emblem Three Houses game, the widely considered to be the best Fire Emblem game, and I did notice that loading times were shorter and that it was smoother. So it is just inherently able to utilize some of the improved hardware. I also checked Smash Bros, and the loading time for Smash Bros has improved. So it is the games are benefiting from the new hardware without needing any sort of special upgrade.
mm-hmm.
Um, but as far as what will make me play that Switch 2, right now it's just Mario Kart. And that's kind of a sad deal because if you remember the Switch, it released with a lot of interesting stuff. I remember day one, I bought Snipper Clips and I bought Breath of the Wild, and I had a really great time with both. And I think that they really held my attention. But the other thing is, you can't really blame Nintendo for launching with Mario Kart. Mario Kart is one of the best-selling games of all time, and it's kind of a guarantee that people are going to buy it if they get the Switch. And apparently the Switch 2 is one of the best-selling consoles of all time, even with all the controversy surrounding it. And that kind of sucks, honestly. And
Mm-hmm.
I feel bad that I'm a contributor to that, because Success Nintendo is kind of a dick. When Nintendo is successful, they're not generous, they're not kind, and they're not consumer friendly. Um, so they're in success mode right now, and I feel like they're going to be in success mode for a while, considering the sales of the Switch 2. But all of that to say, the price tag for the console, the price tag for the game, um, I'm enjoying it. I can't say that I'm not enjoying it. I've been sitting down and playing with Jackie a ton. She's been enjoying it. You can play knockout mode online with two people on the same console.
That's good.
Uh, yes, it's still good for couch co-op while also being online, which I'll give them full credit for. Um, is it worth it right now? The answer is definitively no.
Mm.
Like, I mean, I can justify it for myself because I'm going to have access to the catalog that they're going to be putting out, because Nintendo don't release for nobody else. And then now we at least have one of us who can talk about it on the podcast, right?
True. So true.
And and the other thing was, it's a Switch 2. It comes with two controllers. I knew that I was going to be playing with Jackie, so it fiscally, at least in that sense, had some logic behind it. So, I would not recommend getting a Switch 2 right now if you don't have one already. I would wait maybe towards the holiday season to see what else they have on offering. Like
That new
you don't want to
Donkey
just play.
Kong game in like a month or something, right?
There is a new Donkey Kong game coming out. I think so. If you remember, we're pretty clearly got our Switch 2 pushed up, right? They weren't looking to make an announcement on the Switch 2 when they did, but all of the leaks and all of the slippage and spillage that came out of Nintendo, they kind of forced their hand, and so they made their announcement and they moved things up, and they were also pressured, of course, by the tariffs. Uh, I don't think that they were meaning for this game not to be a launch title, but
Sure.
but because the Switch 2 came out when it did, now people got to wait a month. And honestly, I'm glad that they'd rather wait a month and polish it up than just try and hurry it out the door to get it as a launch title. I respect that. But also, fucking $70? Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I've been a little surprised by how few things are at launch, just because like I can look back at some of Nintendo's less successful things like the Wii U, and there's one company that basically always has something to put on a launch console, and that's Ubisoft, and they don't have fucking anything for this. and it's
Yeah.
kind of a shocker to me.
Well, okay. So what's the actual offerings right now for Switch 2? Cyberpunk. You know, I hear it actually runs surprisingly well, like a 40 frames per second, like average across the entire game.
Okay.
I have a nice computer. All right, I'm not going to be buying Cyberpunk for the Switch 2, even experimentally. Um, but it also is a game that highly features the mouse controls, and it justifies the mouse controls. So there's that, and then you have the Switch upgrades to Switch 2 type games, which is Kirby and the Forgotten Land. You have both the Zeldas, and I forgot what the fourth one is. There's another one.
I can't remember.
But anyway, yeah, it's some fourth game that people don't care about. But yeah, so you have those, and then you have Super Mario Kart World.
Yep.
Like, I think Street Fighter got a release, but
it did. Street
God,
Fighter 6 got its release.
I am not playing Street Fighter on the Switch 2.
I imagine
With
it's
how
a
legendarily
fucking nightmare.
bad Nintendo Wi-Fi is, I don't think that I want to ever engage with that. I don't even know if they said it was crossplay with the other platforms, but I highly doubt.
I imagine it must be, and I imagine it has made a lot of people unhappy who play on other places.
You think that it is, huh? We'll have to look that up.
I can't imagine why they wouldn't.
Okay. Well, and then rather than get long in the tooth here, so for the sake of moving on, we played a lot of Elden Ring Nightreign.
Yeah, I think I've put substantially more time into it than you, but
yes, definitely.
I'm gonna start with the broadest basic feelings I have about this game.
Okay.
Number one, I understand why it has Elden Ring in the name, but this is not a game that I think is really for Elden Ring fans.
Why is that?
Because it really, there are pieces about it that play like Elden Ring, yes. But what FromSoft's single player, more or less, adventure games have been, RPG adventure games have been, the Dark Souls series, the Bloodborne even, is a game that rewards being methodical, planning things, figuring out patterns, etc. And this game is really built to say, just fucking go. Do not stop.
Okay.
Do not think,
I get where you're coming from.
Go.
I get where you're coming from, but the idea of not having method and all that is kind of strange to hear you say. Because, you know, the first time that we played and we dropped down, like, I don't know what we're doing. Like, we circumvented so many things that probably would have benefited us. And now when you play, you're like, you are methodical about it, right? You're like,
Yes.
Drop here and get these guys, and then we'll get our first level, and then let's hit this nearby church because we got to get it, like, because it's on the outer rim. You know, you develop an understanding. You develop a logic and a method. It's just not the same as Elden Ring's logic and method.
What I think I mean is, like, the pace of it and everything. The method of the moment to moment, how you engage with enemies and stuff like that, feels very different.
Sure.
Despite all the, like, moves and abilities and stuff mostly coming from Elden Ring.
I appreciate that in Nightreign because I think when it comes to games like Elden Ring, for me, I am too methodical, where I don't feel, without a fire under me urging me to, like, move forward, I just kind of don't do much of the content other than, like, at a snail's pace.
Yeah.
I think that when you have a fire under you to perform and, like, hit certain thresholds, kind of like a knockout tour. It's kind of like the knockout tour of Elden Ring. You tend to be a lot more, like, breakneck with your decision making, and I kind of like it.
Yeah. And so the other piece of this then, like, that first part is just, hey, putting Elden Ring on it is going to sell copies, and I think it's going to sell copies to a lot of people that aren't going to like the game. the other part of this for me is, and we all know I am like someone who had a lot less positive to say about the base game of Elden Ring than most of the rest of the world. Uh, I think this game is really flawed in some pretty huge ways, and I am having more fun with it than I had with Elden Ring.
Hmm.
I am really liking this game way more than I thought I would. I was really on the fence about buying this game, and then when I found out, oh, there's a character you can kind of do some Sekiro combat with, I was like, all right, well, Sekiro is one of my favorite games of all time. Let's fucking pick it up. Let's see how it is. And now I've played like every character. I'm playing with magic in these games, in this game, even though I never fucking use magic in like any of the
Yeah.
Elden Ring game or Souls games, from Soft games. Like I have
Well,
really dove into this game and I'm enjoying it a lot.
I do think that a large part of why it's appealing in the format that it takes is because there's a lot less crypticness and with like how things actually work. You know, like yes, you know, you can use alternative weapons for certain characters because this character has a lot of dex. You know, it's like, oh, you can use a katana
Mm-hmm.
on Iron Eye because he has a lot of dex. But generally speaking, if you just like take bows, it's not going to be detrimental to your gameplay. You know,
Yeah.
there's not a lot of confusion over like menus and stats and like what you should level as because a lot of that is just so much more streamlined for the sake of what this game is. And I think that is appealing in a lot of ways. And to say that there, you know, it's just the name Elden Ring thrown on here. I think that that's largely the case, but there is also lore, and I do think that they're not hand waving it completely. I think that they, you know, if Elden Ring is going to continue as a thing, then things that happen in Nightreign and like the journal entries and, you know, the way that this period in the history of Elden Ring is portrayed is going to borrow from this game, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Mm-hmm.
but it's also presented in a way that you don't really need to engage with that lore. But that's also the case with the base game and all the other Dark Souls games. You don't really need to care. It does add a level of depth that is fun for some people, but, you know, for the people who didn't care about that in the first place, I feel like this is kind of a game more for them anyway.
Mm. Fair. Um.
So, yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, what else is there to say about it? Um,
I
you
mean
know,
the.
I've for
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
so most of the time that I've been playing with Neil, we've been having a rando in spot number 3 because you have to have 3 people or you're playing solo, right? They do have a solo mode. There's no duos mode yet, but by and large, I find that playing with a random person has not been bad. Generally, if you communicate via markers, they will agree or disagree, but the level of communication that you have for what it is actually pretty sufficient.
Yeah. The flow of the game is kind of straightforward enough in a way that you don't need a lot more other than hey, let's go here.
Yeah.
I've
And
also
some
I also want to just call out uh yes, they say there's a single player mode. You can toggle the single player mode on. It is not very fun.
would you say that it's functional for getting remembrances done?
Some of them, yes.
Oh, okay. All right.
Some of them, no. For example, one of the really early on ones for the Iron Eye has you fight a like invader basically who's also an Iron Eye. Uh and trying to do that solo, I eventually did it, but like it sucks to fight someone that basically has all of your moves but also some maybe better equipment than you can find in a reasonable time period. And
Hmm.
also then be on this time limit to fight them while they have like 6 times your HP.
Hmm.
Like it is frustrating to do a lot of that, I think. Um Though yes, you can do some of it, and there's also a bunch of remembrances that are like specifically single player, where you're not going into the multiplayer map to get these done. You are just like having a fight in a unique arena as a one-on-one of some kind, and like those have been fine.
Okay.
It's a weird game. I really like it. I'm probably gonna play some more of it tonight, in fact.
Yeah, flawed games sometimes have more charm than games that are quote unquote perfect. So, some of that jank is personality. Anyway, that's the games we played, and most of the games that I played, and we have a whole Summer Game Fest to talk about. So, let's move on. So did you catch everything? Like, did you watch all the presentations?
Not everything. I watched the Sony State of Play, which was a couple days before Summer Game Fest. I watched the opening night live, or whatever the fuck they call it, for Summer Game Fest. And I watched the Microsoft thing a few days later. I think we should just kind of do those in order. I know there were some other events. There was the like indie game event thing at some point.
Well, I didn't catch everything. What I watched the state of play that led into Summer Game Fest, and then I watched the actual Summer Game Fest itself, and I watched the Microsoft Xbox one, and that's kind of like where I cut it off.
Yeah,
but there's plenty to talk about in that, and we don't have to hit everything.
No,
obviously.
We don't. Let's just kind of
there's
talk
a lot
about
of bloated.
Highlights,
I think that's the way to go about it.
Highlights
Because
and lowlights, actually. There's maybe one or two lowlights to speak about too.
What I will say, just in general, is that again, things that stood out to me are ones that were visually distinct. As we reach a kind of an omega point in technology with like the ability to portray things photorealistically, I feel there's still so many studios that are like chasing that aesthetic, and I'm not interested in that. Just putting that out there. And so when there's so many games that have that photorealism, they kind of blend together, and I just stop caring. Yeah. So don't expect to see any games of that particular aesthetic on my list. But having said that, the first thing that I have on my list is Felt That, which is the puppet boxing game.
Okay. Yeah, we'll start on
which kind of flies it kind of flies in the face of what I just said, because it is photorealistic, but it has a very particular style.
Yeah, it's like, going for photorealism, not with like dudes in a desert, but instead
not like 8K skin textures
and like the way they move.
Yes, exactly. And I feel like everything that they showed nailed that. It felt very The Muppet Show to me, but also more violent and more grotesque. And just the ability to have that as the foundation for what you're presenting was enough to be like, oh, that's so different for me that I felt like it needed to be brought up. So yeah, we can jump around. It doesn't need to be specifically.
Yeah. I think that the Felt That one was the thing that I like came away with Felt That was it. For the first time, because I'm not really a Muppets guy, it was the first time at an SGF where the Muppet thing didn't make me just kind of tune out.
I mean,
so that's good.
Right, they didn't have a Muppet guest this year.
Yeah, weird.
Maybe they're busy with other things. I don't know. So did you have something to follow that up, Neil?
Yeah, I mean, some of the big ones for me. Well, one of the big surprises, actually, was at the end of the State of Play, where Marvel's coming back, but not as Marvel vs. Capcom, and it's being done by Arc System Works, which is fucking wild.
Yes, the designs for the characters were very, very Arc Sys.
Yeah.
And I really like a lot of the time, State of Play has like this aside thing where they like visit the studio, and it's like a lot of B-reel of like people sitting at computers and typing. And it's like, oh wow, look at them working, quote unquote. But at least for this one, There's a lot of like talk about like the communication between ArcSys and the people who were holding the property rights and like giving it to them to make this game. And it's like, we want you to make it the ArcSys Marvel game. And I'm like, that's like, that someone gets it, you know, like someone who is like higher on that chain and in charge of these properties actually does understand like what they're doing, because you don't give this to ArcSys and be like, okay, try and make it as fucking Marvel Cinematic Universe as possible. No, they are definitely making their version of Marvel, and you know it did evoke a lot of the same feelings that Marvel vs. Capcom did, but at the same time, you know, it's like you have to see the designs.
Yeah, the one that like, well, I guess two that kind of stood out to me the most were their Iron Man design looks extremely just like mech bodysuit rather than the kind of, I guess not even mech bodysuit. Like it looks a lot more like a Gundam mech than
Fighting
Iron Man
robot
usually does.
more than, yes, it's more fighting robot more than like super suit.
Yeah. And the other one that kind of stood out to me was Miss Marvel, because there was a specific shot where they like really go in on her face, and it's like that is just completely anime looking face, like not going for any of this like, who does this look like the person playing Miss Marvel in the fucking cinematic universe? Not at all. It's just an anime character.
Yeah.
That game looks fucking very, very, very overwhelming visually, with a 4v4
Yeah.
and just tags all over the place. Just like, oh god, what is happening?
Tag team fighting games seem like they're making a pretty big comeback. Like it's going to be a
Yeah.
big year tomorrow for fighting games again. And that's really exciting to see, because like we tend to have like on-off years when it comes to fighting games, and I feel like this past year has been kind of slow.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we've been getting a lot of updates to existing games, but you know, nothing so groundbreaking. You know, I think the weirdest thing that's happened is the stupid ads for King of Fighters
Oh
that we
god.
talked about.
Yeah, King of
You know, it's
Fighters
like,
has been a thing.
yeah. But anyway, so back to Summer Game Fest. Uh, so Sonic Racing Cross Worlds. I mean, you love Sonic, right?
Yeah, I haven't really engaged with any of these modern racing games at all. They've done what, like 3 of these kart racers, and I've
You didn't
never
play All
touched
Stars
any of them.
Racing's Transformed?
I never ended up playing it ever.
Oh, it was so good.
I
I
know
actually played a
it's
lot of that.
supposed to be a really good game. I just never got around to it.
Yeah, it definitely filled a gap with arcade racing games. But like, I played the shit out of All Stars Racing's Transformed. So now we're getting Crossworlds, and Crossworlds is being very literal in how it's crossing over with other worlds, because we also have Hatsune Miku, Minecraft Steve, Joker from Persona 5, and Ichiban from Yakuza Like a Dragon.
Yep.
And that's very funny, you know. It's like, so in All Stars Racing Transformed, we had crossovers. You know, we had Wreck-It Ralph in there. We had fucking Rio from Shenmue. But you know, some of that is just because of like
Wasn't that the
Sega's
one that had,
association.
like the real life lady who does NASCAR racing or something in it?
Yes, Danica Patrick.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yes, you can have the real life Danica Patrick. Don't think she's gonna be in this one, but who knows? It seems like Sega's really branching out and getting different things in here. I mean, obviously Ichiban, you know, Like a Dragon, has a very deep roots with Sega, so that's not surprising. But basically every other one was pretty surprising. And again, you know, Sega is in charge of a lot of the Hatsune Miku games, but you know, Krypton Future Meter owns Hatsune Miku. They don't necessarily have to give them the ability to put that cultural touchstone in their racing game, but also it makes perfect sense. I just wasn't expecting it. But speaking of Like a Dragon, we got more of that 1940s, 1950s.
Oh, Project Century.
Project Century, which
they had a new name for it now. Shit.
The new name, I believe, is Stranger Than Heaven.
Right.
and it looks really good. Like, so one of the things that's tough with Yakuza is that when you're explaining Yakuza to someone and you say there's like 6 games, they're like, oh, well, I don't have time for 6 fucking games. So that's when games that are spin-offs end up being like really great ways to indoctrinate people into these types of games. And I feel like Stranger Than Heaven is definitely going to be one of those.
Mm-hmm.
And again, like, I'm a fan of the Yakuza series. I only have played 2 of them. So I don't know like every plot beat and meaningful thing that happens between like the many characters. And sometimes I just want to have a simple contained thing, and it seems like this is going to be the case. So I'll probably be very interested in picking that up.
Yeah.
What else? Oh, another. Oh, here's a weird one. You played Mortal Shell, Neil.
I did recently, and they announced Mortal Shell 2. A lot of the systems that Mortal Shell was playing with were very interesting. They didn't all land, and that game was kind of obviously constrained in a lot of ways. This game looks like they are going a lot bigger with like enemy design and stuff like that, which definitely makes me think they learned some lessons from Mortal Shell 1. It looked pretty cool. But this is another one that I'll probably not get to right away. I'll get to this years after the fact.
Well, I guess my question is, I didn't play Mortal Shell.
Mm-hmm.
Are there that many guns in Mortal Shell?
There are no guns in the first Mortal Shell.
Okay, just trying to confirm, because when I saw that, like, I was like, this kind of looks like Mortal Shell, and then they showed a bunch of guns, like, oh, this isn't Mortal Shell, and then they showed the title, I'm like, oh, it is Mortal Shell. Maybe I didn't realize there's guns in that.
Yeah.
But no, it seems like they're really adding guns.
No, as far as the we will say closer to Souls-like action games that were announced, Neo 3 is the one that I was kind of like, oh shit, this is apparently coming out soon.
I immediately thought of you. Remember,
I had some misgivings about the early parts of Neo 2, but I ended up really liking that game by the time I was at the end of it. Which has me going like, shit, Neo 3, I am probably going to pick that up very soon after release.
Yeah. No, I definitely thought of you when that showed. I was like, oh god. I guess we're gonna have to watch 25 more streams of Neil playing Neo.
Hell yeah.
And then, in the same vein, Lies of P got its DLC surprise dropped with Lies of P Overture. Very saturated time for video games. Like I was very interested in picking up Lies of P and playing that, but I've also been playing so many other fucking games.
Mm-hmm.
What else? What else did you see, Neil?
A couple of the ones that were actually like the biggest, I'm very interested in this, was Sword of the Sea, which is the next game coming out from the Abzu and the Pathless devs.
Right.
That game kind of looks like a lot of surfing around, frankly, a very Journey-looking desert. Same people behind those games actually did have a lot to do with Journey, so, there's some pedigree there that makes sense. But the Pathless was like kind of a relatively simple game that just had incredible feeling movement. And knowing how they make movement feel has me very excited to see this kind of like hoverboard surfing game that they're putting together, and I'm definitely going to be picking that one up. And then we also saw, I don't remember if they gave us an actual release date, but Mina the Hollower. First time we've seen that in a few years. And they put out a big demo same day. I didn't play the demo. I don't know if you picked it up. You're more of a demo person than me.
So you say we hadn't seen Mina the Hollower in a while, but I've been getting regular updates about the development because I backed it. But yes, so the demo came out. I have it on my Steam Deck. I feel like that's a really great way to play that. Just have not gone around to it. I definitely would have talked about it earlier. were it the case. But I think that I've talked about it enough to not really need to go into detail about it.
Yeah, I'm
But
very excited about it either way.
limitations are very important for creativity, right? And a lot of the games that I'm eye rolling at when these showcases come around are because we no longer have a lot of the limitations that requires them to be thoughtful about the decisions that they make. They just throw everything at the best technology in order to handle everything and not optimize and not be creative. So when you see a game that's styled in Game Boy Color style, you kind of have to expect like, okay, they're gonna be doing something interesting with this because of the constraints of like not just like the color palettes or the resolution, but just the space they're working in. So I'm expecting big things from the Hollower. I hope that I don't get disappointed.
Me
But yeah, I mean it's the first new property since Shovel Knight that Yacht Club Games has made. So
yeah, the like 9 Shovel Knight things they made.
I cannot wait to see the assist trophy for Mina in the unannounced Smash Bros.
Hell
That's
yeah.
what I'm saying.
For a couple of lowlights on this whole weekend.
Sure.
Because I want to hit some good stuff again before we kind of wrap up. There were kind of 2 big lowlights for me, and that was I know we talked about felt that there were some like cool things happening at the SGF announcements, but I had to actually go back and remember what was in it because the actual presentation itself felt really sleepy to me compared to usual. I don't know if like Jeff Keighley's energy was low or if I was just distracted or what, but like I had to a few days later be like, wait, what the fuck did they announce at that thing?
Yeah, I mean I typically have a notepad open, but what I'll say is that there hasn't been the same star power as previous years because like if you think about what was going on with Cyberpunk and you think about what was going on with a lot of the titles from the previous years, there was a lot of spectacle. And I think that as far as the Summer Game Fest show was for now, they tried to keep the length similar, but there just wasn't enough spectacle to fill that time. So there's a lot more sleepy discussion rather than, having fucking Imagine Dragons come out and play the Arcane theme or whatever.
I think you're right about part of that. I also wonder, compared to the other shows, SGF felt a lot more like there was kind of a certain tier of video game, I guess, that kind of made it all wash into one big thing for me. And that makes some amount of sense. Like, SGF is people are paying to get into that and show their thing. And so a lot of these smaller devs aren't, and the smaller devs were a lot of the more interesting things that you and I tend to look at and go, oh, yes. A lot of those aren't going to be able to show up there just from a, like, cost-prohibited nature of it.
Sure.
And so there's a part of me that wonders, like, yeah, we saw some big stuff there, but a lot of what we saw was big stuff that kind of looked the same as big stuff we've seen for years. And that's how I came away from it. Felt that being kind of a very big outlier.
I mean, again, a lot, like, as much as the Summer Game Fest has been trying to take over what, like, E3 was, a lot of companies have since branched off and done their own thing,
Yeah.
So they don't necessarily feel compelled to, like, bring their A stuff to, like, this conglomerate show. And I think that without the spectacle, it's kind of like advertising, It's like, do I want to show my big stuff in this big show if there's, like, no spectacle there?
Yeah.
If Keanu Reeves isn't going to show up, people are going to be tuning into this, knowing that there's going to be all these crazy surprise things. But this year there really wasn't. In fact, one of the weirdest things about the show was like they were talking about the 30th anniversary of Resident Evil, right? Like
Yeah.
the director came on, he was like, we won't be able to, if you just hang tight, we'll show you something about the new upcoming Resident Evil later on, kind of alluding like, oh, it will be like, in a month or something, right? But then they just kind of show something at the end of the presentation. It's like, oh, that's what he meant. Haha.
Yeah.
How clever. And it's like, that was the big thing. And it's like, oh, well, like even Kojima showing up and kind of like drearily talking about like his projects and then showing like a really disjointed excerpt of Death Stranding 2.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, well, okay, that's cool that you made that. I don't know, it felt like a bad show and tell if you remember in like grade school.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's like, oh, show and tell's coming, can't wait to see like what people are showing and telling. And it's just like, oh, that's it.
Yeah.
And again, that's not to say there weren't good things here. It's just when you compare it to the past few years, I think it's a little quiet. And I do think part of that is because, the Switch 2 just came out and Nintendo ain't really ready to be showing anything. And also they'd probably show it on their own thing anyway. But a couple other things I do want to talk about real quick.
Mm-hmm.
I think the first thing is like Silksong. Can we talk about Silksong?
That was going to be my other low light. We had Silksong show up in this, not as
the
an
Xbox
announcement of itself. It was not a like, hey, Silksong is coming soon. No actual release date on it. But
okay, so let's be clear. So the Xbox presentation opened up with the talk of their new handheld, which isn't really their handheld. It's just an Xbox branded ROG Ally, which those have been on the market for a while now.
Yeah.
But the big gimmick for the Xbox branded one is that it is capable of doing the subscription service that they have, and so that is good. It opens up a very big library of games for a very relatively cheap subscription cost. But they kept showing Silksong in the background, and like at some point, the fucking lady, the CEO of Xbox or whatever, whoever she was like literally standing right next to the humongous vertical banner of Silksong. Like they were trying so much to imply that Silksong is like an Xbox thing without actually saying it.
Mm-hmm.
And to the point that they were like, and Silksong will be available day one with Xbox Game Pass on the ROG Ally. And it's like, oh, like that kind of sounds like you're saying that it's launching with this device. And of course, we didn't know when that device was launching either, so we didn't really have a definitive idea like what that actually meant. But after the fact, Team Cherry's the person in charge of marketing from Team Cherry, he came out and was like, Silksong is not attached to any console's release.
Yep.
We need to clarify this, and that it's actually coming out before that device is coming out. So, don't get confused. Which, it's heartening to know that it will be out even before that comes out, because I believe that the Xbox ROG Ally is coming out holiday season.
Yeah.
But even that
then,
implies
we don't have a date for either one of these things. We don't have a date for Silksong or the Ally. It's like, okay.
Well, we have a series of clues, is what we have.
They keep
the series
saying
of clues
this
is
year.
The first clue was 2025, announced during the stupid Nintendo Switch Direct, which was extremely generalized. But then we had the ROG Ally Xbox Edition saying release holiday season, and then we have a third clue, which is the marketing manager saying that it's coming out before that. So, I guess anytime between now and the end of the year.
Like
Could be anytime between now and the end of the year.
Yeah.
So
kind of
that holiday happens to be Christmas, and Christmas is at the end of the fucking year. So literally any time this year, basically.
But they are saying this year,
hey,
which I'm excited about. But like that,
it's real.
That whole way that they presented that and everything was a big low light for me.
It's like, you don't try and co-opt Silksong, man. Like, we've been waiting for this shit forever. Do not pretend. So yeah.
Microsoft's thing in general was kind of weird. Their what was it, Black Ops 7 presentation that looked like they were trying to make it look like anything other than a fucking Call of Duty game. And then they're like, this is Call of Duty,
You
by
know
the way. It's
why?
like, what the
You
fuck?
know why? You know why? You know why?
I can imagine.
Because everybody who plays Call of Duty already is going to know it's coming out. They're trying to branch out and get a bigger audience.
Yeah. Didn't work for me.
I don't think it's gonna work. It ain't gonna work.
No, this
But it's
this
also
weird
still
like
gonna be
psychological
successful.
thriller. Like for a moment I thought it was a trailer for the next like Remedy Control thing.
Oh, you thought?
For like a
Were
little
you
bit of
excited?
that trailer at the start, I'm going like, what the fuck is happening here? Is this like the next one of those? Is this some weird cutscene that's gonna happen for their like multiplayer thing they talked about forever ago? Fire team or something?
Yeah. I don't know. Uh, but no, it's Call of Duty.
Yeah. Blech.
I mean,
Blech.
are you surprised that a new Call of Duty is gonna come out?
No. No. Of course not.
Me neither.
I was surprised that Game Freak is putting out a game that was announced at the uh, Xbox thing called Beast of Reincarnation.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Considering Game Freak has a lot of Pokemon pedigree, it's weird to see them doing something that looks kind of
right.
modern.
So you think of Game Freak, you think of it as like intelligent systems, right? Like a second party kind of deal where it's like, yeah, they're their own thing, but like they're basically attached at the hip to Nintendo. So it's very much kind of like the Square Enix situation with Sony, or even farther in the past with Nintendo, where like generally speaking, when you see a third party do something where they're working outside of their normal partnership, it can indicate that maybe that partnership isn't the best right now. You know, they got to diversify, and it seems like Game Freak is doing that. I don't really know that much about the game. I saw the trailer, but I didn't pay that close attention. Other than it's like, oh wow, Game Freak's making something outside of Nintendo.
Yeah. I thought it looked kind of cool, but very little details about it. So,
Yeah. What else? Was there anything else?
I mean, the only other thing was the Street Fighter 6 character announcements for their next season.
The Kenny Omega ones.
Funny announcement, but didn't exactly have a lot for us there other than these are the characters and here's Kenny Omega cosplaying as them.
Yeah, I think the issue there is like not everybody's gonna know who Kenny Omega is, and then you're like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah, but anybody who pays attention to fucking Street Fighter is gonna know.
I don't know. I don't necessarily know if that's true. But I enjoyed it. I thought it was funny. I think that some people didn't like it, even though they know who Kenny Omega is. But it's. I'm glad that Capcom wants to work that closely with the community. I think that that's a sign of health. So, and it's not like Capcom's hurting. Like, it's not like they couldn't have afforded something more of a spectacle. I think that they just wanted to work with Kenny, and they did. And I'm glad that they did. What do you think of those announcements, Neil?
I'm not particularly excited about any of them, but
yeah, no Abel.
No Abel. I'm not expecting Abel to ever fucking come back. But I will say it's kind of neat to see C Viper coming back, because C Viper was a pretty different type of character for Street Fighter, so having them come back in Street Fighter 6 now, I'm very interested to see in what ways they are different.
Agreed. Yeah, I think that looking at the roster as it is right now, I feel like C Viper would be a very different kind of character to introduce. It would add more without detracting from existing characters, you know? Mm-hmm. And I guess that's it. I don't really have a ton else to really talk about.
Yeah, I basically said all my highlights, so I know there was a lot more But
There was another Scott Pilgrim game announced.
yeah,
It's a
that
beat
was
'em up
true.
pixel game. They're trying to recapture the magic of the original Scott Pilgrim game.
There was that
Um,
like cat going to hell game with a cartoony look that reminded me kind of someone trying to make like a modern Conker's Bad Fur Day.
yeah, the rubber hose animation, right?
Yeah. I don't remember the name of
Yeah.
that one, but like that was at least a unique look. I just wasn't very
Yeah.
interested in the content.
Um,
Oh,
the
High on
Lego
Life
Voyages
2?
game. Oh, hi, yeah.
Like, yeah, not
Yeah.
not excited for that one either, so uh
I mean, I guess like maybe if you are completely oblivious to discourse, then if you enjoyed High on Life, then you might see them and be like, "Oh, neat." But unfortunately, I'm not immune to discourse, so
yeah.
yeah, not gonna be playing that.
Pretty sure
Um,
the voice actor's not gonna be in it, but they also didn't have the guns talk at all in this. It was it was such a weird trailer because the first game was like all about, hey, the guns talk, and this trailer had guns with faces and not a single fucking word. It's just like, okay. Interesting.
yeah, I don't know. I didn't even recall that they didn't say anything. I need to rewatch that. That is very strange. Um, oh, the Lego Voyages game looked very chill.
Mm.
Looked like a chill little two-player thing. And speaking of two-player thing, Out of Words also looked good. The puppet two-player thing,
Yeah.
which very much evoked whatchamacallit, It Takes Two,
Yeah.
but also not. I don't know. And then the other thing that I really noticed was like the ill horror game. Like I'm
Oh,
not
right.
super into horror games, but boy was the character collision in the animations like very clean. Like what a weird thing for me to notice when I have like disgusting things on screen, right? But like just the general physics of like the crowd squish.
Yeah. Ooh, look at
It
those
looks
soft body
very
collisions.
convincing.
God dang.
Yeah, look at that soft body physics of those disgusting, grotesque horror monsters. Man, they really piling in there. But yeah, no, they looked good. I don't even remember who was making that, but I'm sure that I'll see plenty of content creators freaking out as they play it. But yeah, that's generally the gist of it. I think that at least I'm hoping that in the next couple of months here, Nintendo will have a wider offering for their new console. And if not, then no skin off my nose.
I am very interested to see when Nintendo puts out a direct about the holiday for this year.
Yeah.
Because like, we kind of know in theory Metroid Prime 4 is coming. But and we know the Donkey Kong game next month, but like Nintendo, what does the back half of this year look like for your new console?
Yeah. I mean, Deltarune also came out on the Switch too.
Oh.
And they Toby made specifically one room that uses the mouse controls to show them off. Like it's very funny because like in the Sony PlayStation version, it's a different kind of room, and on the PC, it's a different kind of room as well. It's just
Weird.
like specific to the console. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm not mad that I bought a Switch 2. I'm mostly just astonished that one was available.
Yeah, with the number of people that having that come out like SGF weekend, the number of people I heard talking about having issues getting theirs delivered on time and like getting canceled.
Things getting canceled, yeah.
I was like, I think it was a bunch of Walmart people had their shit canceled like 2 days before it was supposed to come out or something.
Yeah, it's wild. But what I heard from the employee, I mean, this is just, take it as a grain of salt because it's just an employee telling me. But what I heard was that GameStop got kind of special treatment from the manufacturers because it was seen as like something that could help save the brick and mortar stores. And you have Targets and Walmarts and Best Buys that like have other things that are holding them up. But GameStop is video games,
Yeah.
So they apparently got larger shipments.
Interesting.
Which is heartening in a way. It's like, oh, okay, I'm glad that Nintendo cares enough about brick and mortar stores that they're continuing to support it. But like the inverse of that is like, the physical game cartridges for the Nintendo Switch, they're fucking ridiculous in price. Like, the $70 game is $80.
Like, they're doing those weird like key card things instead, so like you don't even really
Right.
You're not getting a physical thing, you're still getting a download. Like,
right. I think that's kind of like missing the point. I think there's loss in translation there, because from what I've heard, the reason that they did physical releases at all was because people want physical release, but because the game's not actually on there, like that detracts extremely heavily away from that, and then you mark it up $10 and it just makes for not the best experience.
Weird.
But I could have imagined a similar situation where the Switch 2 launched without any physical releases, right?
Yeah.
And then there would be discourse about that. So I don't think there was necessarily any kind of winning there for Nintendo. But I just don't see how you can justify an $80 cartridge that has nothing on it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know what the cost of plastic is in this case, but if you're manufacturing en masse, then probably not $10.
No problem.
Anyway,
yeah,
it is getting very hot in my room.
Yeah, fair. Let's go ahead and say video games goodbye, everybody. Thank you. If you have any feelings about your favorite SGF presentation or something you're really excited for, do let us know by emailing us at wherever my thing is going to tell you in a few minutes here. I don't say it every week anymore, so I don't actually remember.
Just say comment on the video.
Comment on the video. There you go. Comment on the video.
We'll see it. We'll actually see it. We swear. If you email us, we don't always check the email. And then we check it afterwards because we remind each other. And then we're like, oh, someone said something.
Shit.
And
what
then,
have we done?
Oh, what are we?
No.
What's the point? What's the point of doing this if we're gonna tell them to email us and then we don't check it? So just comment. Or send an email to the address that Neil's about to say in this pre-recorded statement.
Yep. Bye. Audio Games is hosted and produced by Matthew Lane and Neil Jimenez. Our theme music is Recharging by Gooset. If you'd like to reach out to us, please email us at audiogamespodcast@gmail.com.
I'm sweaty and full of pizza.
Well, let's look at the bright side here.
Okay.
Now it's nice and warm, and you can be like, well, I didn't take my shower yet, so now I get to get all clean.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it would have been way
now
worse
you're outing
if now
me.
it was all hot and sweaty and you had already cleaned up
Neil,
earlier.
Neil, you're outing me. I didn't say anything about the shower on the podcast, and now people know I'm sweaty and full of pizza and stinky.
Well, they knew you were full of pizza.
Well, they knew that part, but they didn't know about the stinky thing.
That's right. I've been shirtless this whole time just to try to keep myself a little less warm.
All right, well, I'm stopping the recording.